In July of 2012, an experienced hiker named Geraldine Largay stepped off the Appalachian Trail in Maine to relieve herself and never returned to the path. She carried food, a tent, and a compass. Search teams covered thousands of acres. Helicopters flew grid patterns over dense forest. Volunteers walked shoulder to shoulder. 2 years later, her remains were found less than 2 miles from the trail. She had written repeatedly in her journal that she was trying to signal for help. No one heard her. Across the United States and parts of Canada, similar disappearances have been documented under a label that remains controversial but persistent: Missing 411. It refers to a collection of cases involving people who vanish in wilderness areas under circumstances that resist simple categorization. National parks, mountain ranges, dense forests, experienced outdoorsmen, children within sight of parents, searches that yield little or nothing. Have you ever heard about it? Mythical ground. If you like mystery, you have come to the right place. The pattern does not begin with mythology. It begins with geography. Yosemite National Park, California, the Great Smoky Mountains in Tennessee and North Carolina, Rocky Mountain National Park, Colorado, the Sierra Nevada. These are not empty wildernesses. They are mapped, patrolled, photographed daily. Millions of visitors move through marked trails each year. Yet within these environments, specific disappearances share recurring environmental characteristics: granite boulder fields, steep ravines, sudden weather shifts, proximity to water, and transitional terrain where forest meets open rock. Children are sometimes reported missing only moments after being within visual range. In multiple cases, they are later found at elevations higher than where they were last seen, despite terrain that challenges even trained adults. Some survivors describe disorientation without panic. Others say nothing at all because they are never recovered. Search and rescue operations follow procedure. Incident command posts are established. Scent dogs are deployed. Helicopters use infrared scanning. Volunteer grids are coordinated using topographical overlays. In most lost person scenarios, statistics favor recovery within the first 48 hours. But within certain clusters of missing 411 cases, search patterns return negative results despite favorable conditions. Weather is sometimes clear, visibility adequate, response immediate. One recurring element is environmental silence, not mystical silence, but a reported absence of normal wildlife noise. Hunters and hikers occasionally describe a moment when forest ambience drops. Wind remains, trees move, but birds and insects stop. It is subtle, it is not always present, but it appears enough in witness accounts to be noted. In other cases, clothing is discovered folded or removed in conditions where hypothermia could be a factor. Yet the environmental timeline does not always align cleanly with standard exposure progression. Shoes found separated from feet without clear trauma. Personal items located in areas previously searched. The National Park Service does not recognize Missing 411 as an official classification. Files are archived under standard missing person procedures. Many cases are resolved, many are not. What remains is not a centralized explanation, but a repetition of environmental convergence points. Water sources, granite fields, severe weather onset, cognitive disorientation. Behavior shifts appear subtle in some reports. Individuals deviate slightly from trail for minor reasons. A photograph opportunity, a restroom stop, a short scouting walk. In wilderness navigation, small deviations compound quickly. Landmarks repeat visually. Dense forest flattens depth perception. GPS reception drops in canyons. What begins as a slight adjustment becomes a parallel path that does not reconnect. Yet the tension inside the pattern is not simple in experience. Former military personnel have disappeared. Seasoned hunters with lifetime familiarity of terrain. Marathon runners on known routes. In certain cases, time intervals between last sighting and search mobilization are minimal. The terrain should produce trace evidence, broken brush, footprints, audible calls, and still, absence dominates. Mapping analysis of clustered disappearances shows concentration in specific national park zones, not evenly distributed. Certain canyon systems repeat across decades, certain lakes, certain mountain basins. The terrain itself does not change significantly over time, yet the files accumulate. There is also an element of verticality. Victims found at higher elevations than point last seen, found in areas difficult to access, occasionally discovered in water without clear drowning sequence evidence, sometimes found miles away with no continuous trackable path between locations. Coincidence exists in wilderness statistics. Millions visit, accidents happen, exposure kills. Falls occur, predation, dehydration, natural hazard. But the recurring overlap of specific environmental markers creates an uneasy accumulation effect. Not dramatic, not cinematic, just persistent. In survivor accounts, descriptions often contain a quiet pause, a memory gap, a sense of losing orientation briefly before realizing distance had expanded unexpectedly. Some describe walking toward a familiar visual anchor that never arrives. Others describe a sound, not a voice, but an indistinct auditory shift before spatial awareness narrows. Escalation within the pattern does not involve visible entities or spectacle. It involves behavioral microdecisions, turning around too late, moving downhill toward water rather than uphill toward trail markers. Confidence sustained slightly longer than it should be. Small delays that expand into nights. Nights that expand into search operations. Families describe a sudden break in routine. A call not returned. A car left at trailhead overnight. Rangers closing gates after sunset. Searchlights cutting across rock faces. Decades of cases remain individually categorized but collectively uneasy. No centralized cause has been established. Weather, terrain, and human limitation explain much, not all. Certain national parks resist consistent cell coverage. Terrain alters acoustics. Granite absorbs signal reflection differently than soil. Sudden storms reduce aerial visibility in minutes. These are measurable realities. Yet within documented cases, the pattern of proximity, water, granite, elevation, transitional zones, repeats often enough to be graphed. There is no creature at the center of this phenomenon, no defined antagonist, only terrain, human movement through it, and a boundary line where orientation dissolves. What makes Missing 411 persist culturally is not proof of anomaly, but the accumulation of unresolved intersections. The forest remains, the granite remains, trails are repainted, visitor counts increase each year. The environment does not appear hostile. It appears neutral, and that neutrality may be the most unsettling aspect, because nothing visibly changes. The same ridge, the same lake, the same marked trail, and then one deviation, one moment, one person absent from the return walk. Records continue, searches continue, families continue. The terrain remains constant. Thank you for watching, and see you in the next mythical round.